Hello, and thank you for joining this webinar with the topic School Streets of Bolzano. The webinar is part of the Metamorphosis project, and I'm very happy that you're here today despite the challenges we are all facing during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Important information for you right at the beginning. If you have any questions, please use the chat for asking them. The questions will be collected and we will try to answer them as good as possible after the presentation. My name is Anna Sollerer. I am working for the Öko-Institut Südtirol Alto Adige, and I'm pleased that Irene Senfter, Managing Director of the Öko-Institut and expert in school streets, will be reporting on this topic and other various initiatives in Bolzano. I will now give you a short introduction to the Metamorphosis project. Some of you already know the project, so just a few words about it. The goal of Metamorphosis is the child-friendly design of public space, and especially the transformation of car-dominated streets and neighborhoods into more livable and child-friendly places. There are 12 partners involved in the project. 7 of them are cities, but also universities, institutes like the Öko-Institut are involved. Our task is, on the one hand, the communication. We are responsible for the communication. And on the other hand, we have a very close cooperation with the city of Milano, which is the local partner of Metamorphosis. The project started in June 2017 and will run until May 2020. Now I would like to show you some nice and colorful pictures of activities and projects that have been realized within the context of Metamorphosis in the last months and years. On the left side, you can see the walking trees in Munich. It is a greening project which was implemented because most roads in Munich are mainly designed for motorized vehicles. And during the implementation of the project, 15 so-called mobile trees were placed on skateboards in an asphalt-dominated area and transformed it over several weeks in a green and public space. In the middle, you can see a parklet in Graz with a converted trailer, and with this parklet, a space which is normally blocked by a car and therefore unusable if you don't own a car, becomes a traffic-free space that can be used by everyone. On the right side, you can see a mobility share point with cargo bikes in Zurich. And there's another picture from Zurich with a tunnel where children, so it was an activity organized by the city of Zurich, and children from the Seefeld district painted this tunnel to make it more child-friendly. And this tunnel is on their way to school, and with the help of a local artist, they painted this beautiful underwater world on the walls of the tunnel. In the middle, you can see a picture from Alba Iulia in Romania. This city is also part of the project, and they did a street closing or street opening. And as you can see here, the children could enjoy playing on the street, and they could also take part in a bicycle competition, and they really enjoyed playing on the street and they enjoy public space. And on the left side, you can see in the last picture an alternative pedestrian crossing in Southampton in England, which was painted by children. And now I will hand over to Irene Senfter. She will talk about different initiatives which make the way to school safer for primary school children in Bolzano.
So good morning also from my side. As Anna said, I will give you some concrete examples from the city of Bolzano. First of all, I would like to thank to engineer Brunella Franchini. She gave us information, pictures in this presentation. She also held another webinar in Italian, so thanks to Brunella. She worked for Bolzano City Municipality for many years now, and she's part of these projects I will have the pleasure to present to you now. So, talking about crossing guards and school streets in Bolzano, I have to say that it is important to have, I have to say that, of course, the targets the city of Bolzano had right from the beginning are similar to the targets of Metamorphosis project. So they wanted on one hand to reduce the use of private cars to schools and from schools back home. And they wanted to enable children to reach their school places on foot or by bike. And with these targets, of course, they increase safety and independence of children, and they get a better quality of the public space around schools for everybody, not only for children, of course. As a basis of these projects, it's important to have a good infrastructure concerning footpaths and cycle paths. And we have to say that Bolzano, it's now about 25 years that they work on these topics, on school projects, school streets, Pedibus projects, and indeed they have now a real good infrastructure as a basis of these projects, which makes it easier, because it is difficult to have a school street or Pedibus when you have crowded streets where you have to walk along. And neither children nor parents will be really enthusiastic in joining this project. Here there are two more concrete examples of Bolzano, a city in which I work for many years now, so I know them on my own. You can see that when they implement school streets, or school streets in this case, next to schools, they always have a good signing, good signalage on the floor, on the ground, and also the classical street signs that show you what situation is. This is a very well-known street crossing, pedestrian and bicycle crossing in Bolzano. And this is very fine because it has a sensor, and when you approach with a bike, it very quickly gives you a green light, and so you really feel good when you use the bike on this crossing, because you know that you never have to wait for a long time. This is a sign that the City of Bolzano wants to give towards cyclists, that they are very welcome in cycling in Bolzano. So we are talking about infrastructure you need before everything else, but you also need people, of course. Something like 121 crossing guards are involved in these school streets and Pedibus projects in Bolzano. They are usually at the pedestrian crossings next to the school areas. We have to say that altogether something like 7,600 children benefit from these crossing guards services. That the City of Bolzano today has 6 Pedibus groups. I think this is the project that sometimes is called in English as a walking bus. So you have small groups of children accompanied by the crossing guards and walking from their home to the school. And then we have a special case of Pedibus walking bus, and this is where children, there where the way is too long towards school, they really get the bus together with the crossing guard and do the way to the school by bus together with the crossing guard. This is an exception, quite rare. As far as concerning the school streets, the principle is that they close the streets around the schools for 15 minutes when school starts and when school ends. There are basically no cars allowed, with some exceptions we will see soon. So for the Pedibus, as I said, it's groups of about 10 pupils, 10 children. It's a maximum of 15-20 minutes walk on foot, not longer, otherwise it doesn't work. And you have to have, that's why you need good infrastructure, direct and a safe route. You see the example on the right side, you see a group of children, the crossing guard, and you see a very nice environment with trees and with a traffic-free street. And here we have that exception that is done on 2 lines, that they get the bus together with the crossing guard and don't walk on foot because the way would be too long. Yes, here are a few concrete examples, 6 I have to say, of the Pedibus lines that Bolzano has already established. There's one in Via Fago, that's in the quarter of Creus, one in Rencho, that's the opposite side of the town, then another one that leads from Via Emery to the Martin Luther King School, another one again in the quarter of Rench from Via Renon to the Kini School, another one in Golias in Via Duca d'Aosta, and the last one in Via Vittorio Veneto, again in Via Fago in Creus. So we said they have 6 Pedibus lines, and altogether we have 9 school streets in Bolzano today. And as I said, for 15 minutes, private cars are not allowed to go to the school and leave the school when school starts and ends. There are few exceptions, of course, bikes, they are not motorized. Public transport, if there's a bus line that has to pass there, then there's an exception for them as well. School buses, of course, disabled people, residents, if there's a real necessity that they have to get out right at that moment, and of course ambulance and police if they need to pass, they are an exception as well. Here you can see that this is done, the implementation of a school street is done also formally in a proper way. The mayor of Bolzano or of any other community makes this decision, and according to this decision you get also the street signs. They are put on permanently so that it's clear for everyone what rules in this area are, and if there is someone that does not respect the rules, then of course police also can handle this in the right way. You see an overview of the city of Bolzano streets and city quarters. You can see that they have in blue, they have quite a lot of cycling paths, 40 kilometers altogether. You can see in pink the school streets, the 6 ones we talked about. And you can also see that Bolzano, and this is also part of the good infrastructure, has quite an extended 30 kilometers per hour and 40 kilometers per hour zone. Very quickly, the different school streets that are already established today. You can see, oh sorry, this was the first one that's only in the morning. Here, the second one, they have the rules in the morning, at noon, and then again in the afternoon when there are school days. Same thing for Martin Knoller, morning and afternoon. Here, another example where there's only in the morning. Another one as well. One more. This one's more a school that has larger times that the street closure works. Also in Vigo. Yeah, and so you have seen that these school streets are established according to the needs of each school, what is needed and what works, talking with all the groups that are involved, and then that is established by decision of the mayor. Here we have a little bit list of the advantages and also of the critical points or of the things you have to consider when implementing a school street. Of course, you have less motorized traffic all around the school, you have more safety, you have clean air for everybody, not only for the children walking there. You have more independence in movement and development of social competences for the children. And there's often really nice social aspects, friendships between children and also between children and their crossing guards, which can become kind of grandpa or grandma for children. So often that's elder people do this job as a crossing guard. The critical points, of course, when implementing it at the beginning, there will surely be some car drivers in the environment that are not so amused about these new rules. As I said before, you need good infrastructure and you also need a good network. You need administration, you need crossing guards, you need police, you need schools, you need parents. All these have to work together in order to have the project working well afterwards. And of course, for this, you also need money. The total cost of the crossing guards in Bolzano are 400,000 euro a year. They are hired with a special contract. They are insured by the administration during their service. And of course, they do it in strict collaboration with the administration, in this case with the police. There's a coordinator that organizes the services, that substitutes when there are crossing guards on a holiday or absent for sickness. And they also do problem management when there are problems that could not be foreseen before. Here you see the benefit that has been measured in 2018 by the municipality of Bolzano. You can see that more or less 80% of the children reach their schools and leave their schools either on foot, more than 50%, by bicycle, more than 20%, by bus, something like more than 6%. And there are only then the remaining ones, more than 18%, come and leave school by car. And by motorbike. This is for the elder children, for the elder pupils. So I think this was everything from my side. We are at your disposal for any questions now. Thank you for your attention so far.
If there are questions, please write them or post them in the chat. I would also like to say that you will receive an email with all the presentation slides and the link to the recording in the next days. And we would also like to ask you if you would give us feedback on the webinar by filling out a short questionnaire. I will put the link in the chat, but I will also include it in the follow-up email you will receive in the next days. We did get a question. How did it all start? Bottom up or top down?
No, this is usually it's a bottom-up process. That is to say that maybe the municipality launches the idea and says that there are money for doing these projects, but then it's always a school or teachers or parents that start saying, okay, we would like to do that in our place. If you do it completely top down, it would hardly work.
Mm-hmm. We have another question. Children still getting by car to the school. Where is it possible to park? How far from the school do they park? And what is the impact on other streets?
This is a good question. There is no general answer to it. You usually try to find a place for those who really, really have to come by car, but it should be a few hundred meters away, usually, not in the real next environment. I remember the discussion we had here in Lana in my community. It was quite similar. And of course, you try to convince as many people as possible not to use the car for bringing the children.
Are there any other questions? Yes, we have one more. Are all the measures taken up by persons, guards, or you also installed, for example, poles in the ground?
Poles in the ground? I didn't understand the meaning of that question. Poles in the ground in order to close the street, or
I think so, yes.
Let's say that in the last time I come back to Lana, leaving Bolzano a moment, we have done something like a sign, how do you call that? Einbahnstraße? Can someone help me? Anna,
one way.
Or? One way, yeah, of course, thank you. We have kind of one-way rule that is, it's an electric sign that switches on only in the morning in that time where it is valid, and then it switches away again. So I think you can also help yourself with technical means, but in Bolzano so far as I know, there are everywhere crossing guards that put on, someone else asked, the sign in the middle of the street in order to close the street. This is all done by the crossing guards. So as far as I know, there are no technical means at the moment.
Mm-hmm. We have one more question. Do the schools provide kiss and ride? I guess this is not the purpose.
No. We had this discussion also in Lana, but it's a problem. If you let them really, a real kiss and ride would be you let them approach really until the front of the building, and that's not really a good idea. That's quite counterproductive. So if someone really, really has to come by car, should try to provide a parking area a few hundred meters away where they can leave, and then they can join either if there's a Pedibus group, or they can be brought by the parent these few hundred meters until the school.
Mm-hmm. And Roman asks if any lesson to be learned for those starting now, especially regarding the implementation phase and the responding to the negative feedback, so mainly from drivers?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have learned that you have to take time, really. You have to usually start a year before preparing, having meetings with parents, with teachers, with neighbors, with all those who will be, with the administration, of course, with all those who will be involved in the process, so that you can clear up everything, answer questions, try to find the best solution for this special environment. And then you will have, in the end, you will still have a few car drivers that are against it, but then you simply have to start. When it's well supported by the school, by the director, by the teachers, and by a large part of the parents, then it's usually a good moment to go.
And the reactions from the parents, here we have the problem that the parents want to drive the children as near the school as possible.
Yes, we have so too. Don't worry, it's the same everywhere. But when you explain and you re-explain and you re-explain that in the end it's a benefit for everybody, and when teachers support you well, and a few parents, at least there's always a few parents, maybe a quarter or a third of them that agree, and with their help you try to convince the other ones that think that they still have to drive until the courtyard of the school.
Mm-hmm. Someone asks if you can show some pictures of the different school streets. So could you show the slides one more time, please? Yeah, but as I said before, I will send you a follow-up email in the next days, and you will get a PDF version of the slides of the presentation.
A special one, or just I go through it once more? Okay,
yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I will send the presentation.
So
we have one more. Sorry.
We have I just go through it. Or was there a specific question according to the?
Did you adapt the school street itself?
No. No. No, there were no changings. You mean infrastructural changes? No, that's maybe why I underlined that you need good infrastructure right from the beginning. I think these streets were not, apart from the signs that that were installed, no other changes. But I have to say here also that the city of Bolzano regularly, for all the streets in the residential quarters, they try to get them more walking and cycling friendly generally. So they, of course, they do measures all the time in order to improve this. And so in this general project, of course, there might be better conditions also in the school streets, not especially for the school streets.
And is the circulation plan of the city adapted to the school streets?
I think that, of course, I haven't checked that, but knowing City of Bolzano, in their urban traffic plan, of course, also school streets and pedibus lines are mentioned. So that, of course, you wouldn't plan in the future to have an augmentation of motorized traffic exactly in these streets because you want to have a deviation of traffic for any reasons. I haven't checked that, but I think so. It would. I would be surprised if it was not like that.
We have one more question from Rowan. Currently, there are 9 school streets in Bolzano. Any plans to grow the number further?
Of course. There will be elections, not in May as foreseen, but now in autumn. And if there is not a radical political change, I know that the actual government is absolutely intention to go on with these instruments, school streets and pedibuses, in order to, because this is a real general target, to have less motorized traffic in the city, and these instruments can help in reaching this goal, of course.
And is the street open for people, kids, being used for any outdoor activity, like kids playing outside?
The school streets, you mean? No, no, it's at least it is thought just to reach school in a safe way and leave school in a safe way. So far, I've never seen, that would be a different approach. And I think they sometimes do when they close the street for school activities, but that's then that's another administrative process. Not usually it's not like that when there's school street, the children play outside. They just go to school and leave it, and that's it.
Are there any other questions? Yes, we have one more question. Before the guards was, excuse me, I don't, before the guards, if the parents that close the streets, I think the question is if the parents help.
No, as I said before when we prepared the meeting, I know that in other countries parents also are involved, but in this case it's all based on the professional, let's say professional crossing guards, because of responsibility questions. So when they do their job, we are sure that they have a regular contract and they are insured, and so everyone is sure that there will be no problems from that point of view, no responsibility problems when there might be an incident, for example, involving a child.
We have a comment on this from Anne-Catherine. She writes that in Belgium the parents have to do this, which is not realistic on a longer term, in her opinion.
Okay, this is interesting that she comments it in that way, because as I said before, colleagues from the Netherlands told me that the crossing guards job is done by parents there, and I found that a wonderful example and was wishing we could go into that direction also in South Tyrol, Italy, because I know that I don't know not even one example of Pedibus or school streets, not even in smaller communities where volunteers work better more than in big towns. For me too, it would be quite unrealistic to have these projects working on a long term without professional help. From my experience and from my cultural background we have here in South Tyrol in Italy. So it's interesting that Belgium also comments it like that.
We have one more question from Martina. Will you always need the guards? I think you already kind of answered the question.
Yeah, in an ideal world, when there will be very, very little motorized traffic in our towns, maybe we can do without school streets and Pedibus projects at all, because going on foot and by bike will be normal and very frequent. Maybe in an ideal world, in a few years, could do without it. But at the moment, I don't think so.
I think there are no more questions for the moment. You can always write us an email. On the last slide, you will find our email address if you have any questions coming up in the next days. So we have one more. Is closing streets on a permanent basis not the solution?
If I come back to my answer of before, closing all the streets permanently, that would be the perfect solution for all those who want to walk and to cycle. But at the moment, since at least in Bolzano, the motorized traffic is quite present and quite frequent, then closing streets, you think for longer terms. Okay, I understand. Yes, of course, that could be an idea, starting with the quarter of an hour in the morning and at noon, and then starting to close it for longer and longer and longer periods and reaching maybe even a few hours a day. but we have to, I'm sure we have to test that out, how it would and could work.
We have another comment from Anne-Catherine. She writes, adapting the circulation plan to it. So to closing the streets on a permanent basis.
Okay, I agree. This was a comment, not a question. Huh?
This was a comment, yes. So if there aren't any other questions, I would thank you for participating in today's webinar. And thank you, Irene, for your very informative and inspiring presentation. And as I've said before, you will get a follow-up email with all the slides and a link to the recording and the link to the questionnaire. And thank you for listening, and all the best to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you also from my side.
Bye.